I'm going to pick up the rectangle tool while I'm in the floor layer, and I'm going to draw from the origin as one corner point of my rectangle, so make sure you snap into that origin, and then I'm going to drag across to that other intersection diagonally opposite that lines up with our string lines, and click, and I've then created, if you like, the top surface of a floor slab. Okay, so when you've got that top floor surface, we now need to give this floor a bit of thickness. Now I'm going to use that origin point level as being the height of the floor level in the building. Of course, we can't have the floor level in the building equal to the ground level outside. The floor needs to sit up at a level above the ground level. I would say at this stage we'll set something like 300 millimeters. So we need the slab, the top edge of the slab, to be 300 millimeters above ground level. The slab would actually be constructed from a 100 millimeter thick slab with a 50 millimeter sand bed underneath, and you add that up, it comes to 150 millimeters. Now I'm actually not going to model the floor to be 150 millimeters thick, because then when I look at the perimeter of the building from the outside, I then see the building floating above ground a little bit. So I would always, in terms of modelling, to start the modelling, consider the shape of the building from the external face, not the internal sectional views. Always consider what you want the building to look like from the external face initially. We'll take you through to the thicknesses in section view a little bit later. So I'm going to push-pull, grab the push-pull tool. I'm going to use my push-pull tool and push-pull that slab thickness downwards. Remember how you can just drag it and let it go and then pull away, and later on type 300 and press enter. That's one way of doing it, or you could have typed the 300 as you were pulling it down. So you can see we now have this, let's call it a concrete floor slab, that is 300 millimeters thick, or that's what it appears to be when you're looking from the outside anyway. When we get into the inside, we'll do something else about the 100 millimeter thick slab. Okay, so we've got the building, the main part of the building floor laid out at this stage. Now I'll start to construct, or you may remember, before we do go any further, you may remember at the back part of the building was stepped out underneath the eaves of the building at one little stage. So I'm going to orbit around so I can see the back edge of the building, and while I'm still in the floor command, I'll pick up my pencil and I'll drop a line from that intersection there on the blue axis. Make sure it looks like it's blue, or if you want to really make sure of this, you can pull past the slab so it doesn't say on face. While you're pulling past the slab, and you make sure, hover and wait for it to say on blue axis, then while it's saying on blue axis, press and hold your shift key. Don't let it go. Now while you're holding that shift key, that has locked the inference of the direction of the line you're about to draw to always be on blue axis. So while you're holding the shift key, you've forced the line you're about to draw to go on the blue axis. So don't let the shift key down, and then you can come along and you can touch another line somewhere else, like here. If you see where I'm holding at the moment, that will make sure it goes along the blue axis down until it hits that line. So that's what I wanted to do just there, a line like that. Okay, now we'll just push-pull that face then, what's left here, the distance that it would pop out underneath the roof eaves. Now I would say if we have a 900 millimeter roof overhang at the back of the building, I would pop this wall out a little bit less than that to enable the fascia at the gutter line to sail past the wall. So we wouldn't pop this out to exactly the 900. I'm thinking I'm going to come back to something like 850. So if I grab that face there, pull out in this direction, remember you can let it go if you like, and then type 850 later, and that pops it out like that. So we've got the floor plan shape of the main part of the building. Let's just go back to the sketch. That's this area through here. We've popped it out by 850 millimeters. Okay, so that's the floor plan shape. Now I'm going to do another push-pull now, and this will form the height of the walls, the main part of the building. But before I do, I'll drop down the layer and I'll make my new current layer wall. So now my new current layer is wall, and I'm going to grab the push-pull tool, but now most importantly, I'm not going to just pull that layer up. I'm going to, well, it looks like it's doing it already for me. Let's have a look. Oh no, okay. Now before I do anything else, I'm not going to just pull that surface up. I'm going to press and release the control key. As I press and release the control key, you'll notice next to the little tool that's floating on the screen, there's a little plus sign. That means that you're not just going to push-pull that face there. What you're going to do is create a new face a certain distance above and leave that existing face there. Because I want that face left there to be the floor, I now just want to push-pull that floor, leaving it in place, but adding a new face up here. Once again, I just give it a direction, let it go, and now I'll type the height of the walls, which I'm going to suggest you use 2450. So type 2450 and press enter, and you've now raised those walls, if you like, up 2450 above the floor. It's going to be nominally a 2.4 metre high ceiling, but with the 50mm extra allows for extra construction items like ceiling battens and plasterboard thickness. Okay, so we've got the shape of the walls there at the moment, and that's looking like a little bit of a boxy start to the building. So what I might get you to do now is save that drawing at that point. So I'm going to press the save tool up here. Now you save to a location where you know you can go back and find this drawing again. So you might like to drop down the browse box and browse to your own portable hard drive or somewhere where you want to keep this drawing. I'm actually going to keep it just on my desktop at the moment. Find desktop, there's desktop, so I'm just going to keep it on desktop. Now I'm going to get you to give this a special name. I'll get you to call this Cabin 1, because this is a single level version of the cabin. In your studies along the way, we might do another option version of this cabin that goes up and becomes a 2-story studio cabin type building with a separate level above. But at the moment, let's just keep this one called Cabin 1 to mean cabin 1 story or single level. But I'm going to keep different versions of this as well. This will aid us, if we keep different versions of this SketchUp model, this will aid us to be able to import different levels of it into other CAD software or building information modelling software such as Revit. When we want to insert or import this SketchUp model into Revit, I actually prefer to keep a fairly simple model, SketchUp model aside excuse me, for that purpose, because I find it easier to import simple mass geometry into Revit from SketchUp and then continue to work on the more detailed Revit components later. So at the moment I'm going to call this one Cabin 1 Mass instead of Cabin 1 Detailed, which we might call a little bit later. So we call it Cabin 1 Mass. I'm saving it to my desktop, but you can save it to your own location somewhere, and we press OK.